So I have a small collection of props and kind of backdrops that you guys can use or not for your photographs. Um, so choosing what goes in the back, I do want you guys to utilize the white because um, as you know, um, most product shots are done on white for catalogs, and things just show up pretty clear on these. It's hard to kind of fake details, which is great. I use, this is just like cardstock paper that's layered so that you don't see through them. This is pretty thick, but just in case. You can also use, which would be preferable, especially for larger scale items, are those large sheets of like Strathmore or Canson paper that you would get at an art store. You can get it at the art store on campus in any shade of white. I've got this is actually just a cutting board that I purchased at a wholesale event, and it's like my favorite thing to photograph all of my jewelry on. You can see most of my pieces are kind of very open with a lot of negative space. The wire can create a lot of shadows, which get very confusing. And so having this dark, deep backdrop with a hint of texture really adds to the piece. Most of my work is very open, and it's either gold or silver, so I don't have a lot of color, I don't have a ton of texture, so this really complements that. So that's something to consider. I also bought this a while back, and it's terrible with my jewelry, but I do like it somewhere in the backdrop sometimes. You can see like how much this backdrop just muddles my piece because it's so confusing. The color of the wood is too similar to the gold, and then the black lines are just kind of going everywhere. For something like this, I would use something more solid that was a different color palette. This is a piece of marble that I picked up. I think I got it at like a Marshall's or something for like $6. That looks pretty nice. So I do use this sometimes, but for the most part, the walnut is my go-to. This actually looks a little funky with the silver too. The colors are too similar, and it gets lost. But with the gold, it's actually quite nice. So for this wood background, the jewelry is the best. I've got these like cool pair of black scissors, which also pop really nicely on this white. So again, that contrast, and this has a little bit of like visual texture, whereas this is smooth and matte. Matte things take photos beautifully, guys. I would highly recommend, unless you've got like some really interesting effect happening, try to get a backdrop that is matte or satin at the very least, because it'll absorb the light. It won't reflect back. You're not going to see a bunch of like weird highlights happening. These scissors actually look pretty decent with this wooden background. I wouldn't say it's the best, but it definitely is way better than what my earrings look like. And then on here, it's actually quite nice too because it's so black. But if this was more of just like a dark brown or like kind of this color, it would again get lost. But it's actually, if we were to really focus in on that and kind of crop out all of the everything else, you know, it can have like a pretty nice warm effect. Let's see if I could. So I'm just switching up the lighting on my little LED ring light so it's a bit warmer. And you can really see what it does to the wood, which is actually quite nice when it's warm like that. So it creates just a really different effect with the photograph. Sorry, I'm just gonna put that right back on. And switch it back, oops. This little fun, cute little enamel red bowl would look nice on the wood. This I think would look pretty interesting on this setting because again, this is like a pretty solid, bright toned piece. And so the background is really more accentuating the solidness of the enamel bowl rather than like taking away from it. But you can kind of see what it does. Like the white with the marble looks weird. It's not quite helping it. So that's something that I would avoid for this particular thing. That, again, I don't know, I'm biased. I love this walnut wood. I think it's beautiful. And then again, pretty bland, but for the most part, it's like industry standard. And my light's up here, my light source, I can move it around a little bit, but you can see how the shadows are changing. So I think it can still look nice. But that's basically a quickie on the backdrop. This is like just a wooden tabletop, and you can see again the color is just not this, like it's got a yellow undertone. It just doesn't do anything for the piece. Maybe if I change the lighting color, it's just like it's not super awesome. So all of these things are things to consider when you're choosing the backdrop for your piece, for your artistic photo setting. Yuck.